Hey, Rosie.
Hey, Marcus.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. And that was beautiful. What were you playing there?
Oh, thank you. I was just improvising in the moment. You know, it's a beautiful day, sun is shining, and kind of absorbing the energy.
Well, it's great to hook up with you today. You've curated a day of virtual design festival for us. There's been 3 of your projects that have gone up online already, and you're going to have a little, after the conversation with me, you're going to play us a couple of pre-recorded improvisations that you did especially for Virtual Design Festival. But to start off with, just tell us about yourself. Rosey Chan, who are you? What do you do? Where are you?
I'm in London right now. I'm in the center of London, and it's just been a very interesting time. I wish I felt a little bit safer going outside, and I'll spare you the rant about people in masks, but I just, you know, it's been a really creative time for me inside. And I think that a lot of things haven't changed in terms of, you know, I'm very lucky that I have my piano. I have my exercise routine, like the Zoom lessons have been really, really great. I do my yoga. Things have been much more regimented actually at home. And I've just been writing a lot. You know, I am trained classically. My main thing is now I'm just writing. I love to collaborate with other artists. I think it's very, very important to collaborate as much as possible with people that are more skilled in other areas than you are, because essentially that's going to feed into what you do at the end of the day, and it's going to and that's what nourishes me, learning from people and collaborating with people. So I'd say I'm a composer, I'm a pianist, musician, explorer, cultural explorer.
And so you're a classically trained musician. You studied at the Royal College of Music in London, but unlike lots of musicians, you've kind of got this crossover career, haven't you? In fact, you work a lot with artists, designers, and architects. You cross over into the world of Dezeen. I mean, in fact, we met at the birthday party of a mutual friend who's a very famous designer recently.
Yeah.
And that's in a way how this collaboration came about. So what is your interest in the arts and architecture and design? How did you get into that world, and how do you enmesh the classical training that you had with avant-garde creatives from other disciplines? How does that work? How did that come about?
Well, I've always been interested in other disciplines. So, you know, I've always loved dance, take much joy in working with dancers. And I had friends in those industries. I have friends who are architects or designers or people in fashion. And just through communicating with them and talking with them and you know, a lot of just having people that I have great respect and admiration for, I'm always very open in letting them know that, you know, in some ways, arguably, I'm actually quite cheeky and sometimes don't know my place. And I have no problem with just kind of asking, do you want to do something, or do you want to collaborate on a project? And, you know, I work on the basis that if you don't ask, you don't get. And so if I see something that I really like and it just gives me great inspiration and I just want to do something with it, or, you know, find a way of like crossing our worlds together and creating something unique, if I see that opportunity, I'll take it. And, you know, I don't have a problem with people saying no. Some people do. And it's just like, okay, on, but at least you know. And I think a lot of the time, you know, people do want to collaborate with you, different artists, but if you don't let them know, it's like with Fredericks and Stallard. I met them years ago and I loved what they did and I loved their approach and what they stand for, their values. and how they, you know, they're artists, they really get their hands dirty. They do everything themselves. And I said to them many years ago, I love your work. And, you know, one day I'd love to be able to do something with you. And I think had I not said that, we, you know, we became friends. We had this great communication. We had this great idea exchange, and, you know, we hung out. And just over the years, I think organically these things come about, right? And
well, let's
yeah.
talk about the Fredrickson Stallard project then, because that's one of the projects we published earlier. Here it is on Dezeen on my phone.
Cool.
And so they worked on a project called Hybrid Day, which was a project that combined craft skills, making things out of clay, with digitization skills. They then scaled those up through 3D scanning to make some vast bronze items. And that's when they got in touch with you. So tell us about how you worked with them. And if you could also play us the outcome of that collaboration. You can remember it.
The outcome of it was very much digital. So they'd be on my 6 keyboards over there. but you know, essentially the starting point was Bach, and I love Bach. And so, and they were very keen on the fact that they said, you know, that our main element would be the Bach cello suites. And I said to them, well, you know, I said, I love Bach and I love your work. So this would be a really interesting place to start. But rather than having kind of like a sound, just an audio track with the vernissage live event that they wanted to create, you know, maybe that we could bring in a live cellist, Gerald Peregrine, and I could kind of create a sound design around that using like both analog and digital processes. And so yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And then, I mean, I will encourage everyone to watch the video, and you'll see the whole process.
And so you took the Bach cello piece as your starting point, and obviously that big thing in front of you is not a cello, but can you give us a little refrain from that, the cello suites? Is that possible?
Marcus, you asked for a lot.
Well, the other alternative is I go and get my guitar and I try.
You know, well, you know, I'm very inspired by Bach. I could improvise on the theme. That for me, in the spirit of wanting to constantly push myself on a tightrope. But I said to Gerald, I said, you know, maybe you could improvise and just really go where you wanted with it. So I said, so don't just play the notes off the page, but to kind of go wherever you want. And then throughout that, I will be creating these different electronic sounds around you. And sometimes I'm going to completely drown you. And sometimes I'll bring it right down to expose you. So you can just be playing the Bach theme melodies. But what I love is that, you know, it brings out all these different harmonic progressions and new melodies that have been inspired by this piece that was written over 300 years ago. And I think that's rather beautiful. And those are the kind of things that I really enjoy to play with these days. It's like taking traditional elements and then building layers on top of that and finding a way that it can kind of they can culminate into a more contemporary way.
So are you going to play something of it for us?
Okay, so.
Amazing. And that ability to play by ear, is that something you've always had, or is it something you had to work very, very hard at? Is that the first time you've ever played that on a keyboard? Or
Just now, yeah. I mean, that was spontaneous. I think that, you know, once your technique gets to a certain level of competence, in the case of training to become a concert pianist, it's like, you know, becoming an athlete or something. You know, what I've worked very hard to get to that level, and once you've got to that level, and there's no getting away from the hard work that it's taken, you know, you've arrived at that standard where you can play all these amazing piano concertos, and then it becomes super fun. And once you've accepted that you've arrived there, you know, and you've got this amazing technical ability to play this instrument, and you have this wonderful memory bank at the same time of sounds that you grew up with, and like, you know, the bands that you listen to, and like, you know, my parents used to listen to both classical pop and rock and opera and an array of things. And so you have this memory bank of music that influenced you, that you listen to, that you currently listen to, that you share with your friends. And so that, you know, and also it's kind of like having it's better than a computer or an algorithm where you can, like, you're able to jump about and make decisions, like in 3 seconds I'm going to go there, or you know, or there. And you know, so you're interacting intellectually and also cerebrally with your brain, and then you have this incredible finger memory that you've been training for so long, kinesthetic memory. And you know, and then you just go on this journey, as I did, and I think that the more dangerous you make it, the more exciting it can be, because you know, you have this choice of, you can stay within the confines of your technique and play safe and play pretty songs, which that's often quite nice and fun to do, and I do that. It gives me great pleasure too. But sometimes it's great to just like jump over the fence and go into these strange territories and strange keys, and you're really having to think very hard about where, you know, you're going to go. And also, you know, what you have to think about is, when am I going to land? Like a bit like in the analogy of the airplane, am I going to land? And, you know, am I going to crash land, bash, bop, boom? Or am I going to slowly glide in, like, boom, like have a little perfect ending, boom, boom. And so you're making these choices all the time, and like what key you're in, what tempo you're going to be in, and like which part of the memory bank I'm going to draw on. I was once at this social gathering at a party at this friend's house, who's a very famous rock star, and I'd forgotten that I had agreed to do an improvisation at the end of the evening for the guests. And of course, you know, everyone was having far too good a time, and I'd forgotten. And suddenly the host said, you know, Rosey, we're ready for you now. And I thought, gosh. And then, and it's quite an interesting thing, because, you know, you have all this stuff in your mind, but like when you go and physically sit at the piano, I just remember I put my hands on the piano, and I don't remember that much of like that evening, but I do remember that a lot of people said to me the next day that it was they just really enjoyed they really enjoyed it. What I do remember is, how on earth am I going to land? And that was rather interesting, because sometimes when you're really connected and you're really in that zone, it's yeah, you could go on for a rather long time, Marcus. You know, if you asked me to improvise again, we might be here all day.
It is just as well we pre-recorded the improvisation sessions. And for everyone who's watching, the reason we did that was to ensure that the sound and vision quality was good, not because we didn't think you'd be able to pull it off. The piano distorts a bit when it's coming through the laptop like this. But the improvisation then, so how does that work? You just sit down and do whatever your fingers tell you to do, or is there, how much of it is actually made up in the spur of the moment, and how much is it you recalling pre-learned patterns, finger movements and things like that? if I was to say to you, like, give you a theme now, could you improvise immediately around that theme and it be something that you'd never played before? Would it always rely on your mental algorithms that have been there before?
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely. You know, that's the kind of thing I love to do anyway. So when I'm in a concert situation, sometimes I will, like, you know, ask for a theme, or, you know, or someone will give me a theme before, and I'll use it as my narrative, if you like, to trigger the initial idea. And, you know, um, I'm a very visual person, and so, you know, growing up, I had a lot of childhood experiences on very long drives to, you know, the Lake District with my dad and with my family, and there would always be like a different eclectic kinds of music in the car on cassette tapes, and then there would be like this long, like, beautiful vistas and landscapes. And so from an early age, it was very much embedded, this kind of visual imagination. And so it's actually sometimes it's easier if, you know, you give me a word and, like, okay, I will draw from my experiences and my you know, my bank of musical and visual memories, and then use that as my inspiration to initiate an improvisation.
Okay, can we do that now then? Can I give you one?
Absolutely.
Okay, driving to the Lake District when you were young.
Okay.
Amazing. And as someone who's driven to the Lake District many, many times, often with children sleeping in the back, that really took me there.
Thank
Okay,
you, Marcus.
one more for you. This is a bit cheeky, right? A short jingle for Virtual Design Festival.
So say that again, a short jingle.
For the Virtual Design Festival, like a theme tune. Yeah, cheeky, I know. Perfect. And then I come on as I hear us today's news. Brilliant. Okay, before we play the first of the improvisations, tell us a little bit about the playlist you put together, because a lot of your work explores. Well, when we had the conversation that set this whole thing up, you were talking about isolation and how music can be really beneficial to people when they're in lockdown, they're on their own. And you've put together a playlist which we've linked to from one of the post we put up earlier. Tell us about that. Tell us about your thoughts and your work in that area and about the playlist you put together.
Well, during the beginning of lockdown, I found that I had a lot of friends and family members who were struggling to be creative. Some of them are, highly creative individuals, and with the sudden change of environment, suddenly found it difficult to find inspiration and kind of like, and so some of them asked me to suggest some pieces of music. And so I sent them some, not just my own, but other pieces of beautiful music, which I found helped me in during my isolation and during times when I just need to, in general, when I need to relax or when I need to focus or study or just feel something to trigger creativity, so that just to re-energize me in some way, or to sleep, And so I began to put together a playlist as a personal thing for the friends and family. And then I decided that, and they forwarded on, and through the positive responses I had, I realized that it was helping a lot of people. So I decided to make it more widely available and put together a longer playlist, which I plan to update regularly. And then also, this is probably the most creative I've ever been. And I've just been writing so much. And so one of the having new relationships, one of them is with a fantastic forward-thinking organization called Platoon. And I think that's something that's really well needed in times like this, especially for artists and particularly for musicians. And, and that's headed up by Denzel Fiegelson, who's a friend and a great supporter. And, he started iTunes with Steve Jobs back in the day. And he's like a long visionary for independent artists, independent music. And he started Platoon, which is now part of Apple Music. And so, we were talking about this too. And so today, actually, they put out 6 of my new singles, which are meant to stir creativity in your environment and help trigger ideas, wherever you are in isolation right now. And those were written in isolation. So this is something that I've made, widely available, and there's some Mozart on there. There's some Beethoven as well. There's like some other pianists that I really like. So I called it Mindful Piano.
Because obviously on Dezeen, we've spent the last 2 months discussing the kind of architectural and design implications of lockdown and coronavirus, and how buildings will change and how objects will change and so on and so forth. But something we've neglected is how you can really cope with it better, be healthier, be happier through sound, for example. That you don't maybe need to redesign your entire apartment or buy a whole load of new stuff or redesign the streets. You could just make yourself feel much better, able to cope with the situation through music, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And for me, it's just like really like stripping back everything. At the end of the day, music is such a abstract, emotional, universal language that goes straight to the heart, bypasses everything else. And, you either connect with it or you don't. But especially in times like this, I think that just the healing power of music is so essential. And everyone's listening to music in different ways right now. And for me, I know that I'm lucky enough to be able to play it, but also I need to listen too. And you know, we all know certain frequencies affect the brain in certain ways. I have friends and relatives that have had mental illnesses, whether it's Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and I know that it's really helped calm them. So, you know, it's yeah, it's.
Do you know BT Wolf, by the way? She did a collaboration with us a few weeks ago, and she's a musician based in LA, and she's also done a lot of work with Alzheimer's patients and using music therapy to help them. I should make an introduction.
Oh yeah, no, great, do. Yeah.
Okay, quickly, before we go to the first improvisation, tell us a little bit about the two other projects that we published earlier today. One is the Water Dancer project that you did with Eyal Giver and Sharon Eyal, and the other one is you did the soundtrack to Patrick Schumacher's Parametricism movie. So just briefly tell us about those two projects, and if you can give us a little tinkle of how they sound on the piano, that would be great.
Oh, I wish I had Patrick's two books. So with the Parametricism that came out this morning, right? So Patrick and I met at a gallery event many years ago, and we hit it off through he is a great love of contemporary classical music, and you know, and also just like talking about creative processes and stuff. To be honest, sometimes I find it quite hard to understand what he's saying, because he does speak in this kind of, you need to have a triple PhD in philosophy or like architecture to.
You're not the only one, Rosie.
But I love him to bits, and he's got a great sense of humor, and he doesn't take himself too seriously, which is very important as an artist these days. So so we began this dialogue, and he ended up sending me 2 books that he had just written. The Altarpieces of Architecture, Volume 1, the Altarpieces of Architecture, Volume 2. And
you read
I made great use of them, Marcus. They were sitting on my piano for a rather long time. And during that period, I was very interested. Well, I've always been interested, but I was really into a lot of 20th century music, and I was listening to that, and very inspired by the approach of John Cage. So I thought to myself, well, why not plunk the books inside the piano, and prepared the piano with intellectual books. And I basically scored the whole animated film using with the new prepared piano. And that was the basis for the entire soundtrack. And I was very, very, very gonna demonstrate what it sounds like with books so you can hear now. I was very happy with the result, because it gives the piano so many different options. Like it becomes percussive, and then, you know, sometimes I plugged inside it. And okay, I'll give you a quick example.
You actually put the books inside the piano on the strings.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, maybe not that many pencils, but okay. Quite baroque, huh? See what I mean? Quite fun.
And like, I was accompanying you then. Brilliant. I hope you might need your piano tuner to come round tomorrow.
To fish out a few marbles, yeah.
And then tell us about the Water Dancer collaboration.
Water Dancer is a fantastic artist that I admire greatly. Eyal Giver, we met through Denzel Fiegelson, and this is another great reason why music communities, organizations like Platoon are so important and vital for artists, especially in this in this new world. Is that he was first introduced me to Eyal's work, and he's the kind of person, or kind of like guide you and advise you and just say, you know, you need to be working with this kind, check out this person's work. And I fell in love with his work as soon as I saw it. And Denzel put us together. And, you know, I went to, our first project was in Tel Aviv for this gallery exhibition that AL had done, and I'd done all the music for it. So I flew to Tel Aviv and, you know, was there, met him and his friends and his family, and we just got along really, really well. And what I love about AL is that he has, you know, no fixed idea. He likes to be surprised, and that works really well for me. It gives us a lot of latitude. And so we've been working on these projects, and now we're working on a lot more bigger, more complex, but very interesting projects. And the dancer is an incredible dancer, Sharon AL dance company, choreographer, dancer. And I went to see her show, I think it was in, you know, in Peckham, the car park where they did a lot of shows. And that just blew me away, just her contemporary approach and choreography. And, you know, I think, yeah, no, actually, I think it got a standing ovation. It was amazing. So she's the dancer and the choreographer in the film, and we've done a series of them. And it's really fun for me because I get to play with so many different kinds of music. And so my job is to bring out the latent emotional states that are in the animation, and kind of like decide what's the best, you know, what's the best piece that's going to work. And it could go either way. I always like have one, two, or three versions, and then I sit on it for a few days, and then whichever one speaks to me the most emotionally is the one I'll always go with. But AL is also like me, you know, he's very ecologically aware, and I think like most artists now, you can't really separate the planet ecology from the creative process, and if you do, you're kind of redundant and irresponsible in a way. And so we both see eye to eye on that, and our future projects will be very environmentally provocative.
And the water dancer, can you give us an indication of what that sounds like?
Not really, but you should definitely tune into the YouTube video. But I can tell you, I am very influenced by the Baroque music. So Bach again. And so I think I started this idea. A lot of my compositions are often started by these improvisations, and it just evolved through that. And I just felt like I really wanted a kind of like harpsichord sound, and, you know, with this Baroque melodic, the harmonic structure, but then it needed to be contemporary at the same time. And so hence all the contemporary beats. And it's part of a bigger piece. It will evolve. So that was a snippet. It'll premiere for Dezeen today. It's called Zelenka. And I've yet to finish and then distribute it.
Okay, let's go on to the improvisations you recorded for us earlier then. Tell us what they are. You did two, right? You did one in the daytime and one in the evening. So tell us about your approach to those and your thinking behind them before we play the first one.
Well, I think it's around the day that you said to me, okay, we're going to go pre-record because of the techie issues. And, you know, I was partially upset about that, Marcus, but partially happy because, you know, control the sound and control the lighting. But that day, I think it was the biggest full moon that we had in 2020. I think it was the flower moon, right? So it was the full moon night and day. So I treated them both as live, even though we weren't going to do that. So I only did 2 improvisations that day, and then I sent them straight to you. The first one I did early in the morning because it was a beautiful day like now, and I didn't plan how it was going to be. I just, you know, my improvisations are based on, if I'm in an audience, I draw it from the energy of the room, the energy of the people, and like where I am and how I'm feeling at that moment in time. And then I give you the audience my response to that. And so that morning it was very quiet, it was very still, it was very calm, and it was so quiet. Even though I live in the middle of London, it was so quiet outside. And so I the result was a very meditative one, and I was just very interested in the spaces as I got more and more into it, and just listening and opening the ears to just the very, very calm and serene, tranquil vibe that I was feeling at that time. Hence the title. It's from the moon, but I titled it Sea of Tranquility, which I thought was appropriate for the piece. And it's very modal, so a lot of Eastern influences there. And I didn't want to be flashy and show off my technique or anything. I wanted it to be, it was purposely calm and slow. And also it's I'm also working on a series of music, a playlist, which helps. I have a lot of insomniac friends, so to help them with their sleeping. So yeah, anyway, so it's called Sea of Tranquility.
Okay, just before we play that, this has been the most stable of all the live streams we've done. So we actually could have done it live, but we just got a bit nervous after with BT, where we had pre-recorded it, which was just as well, because when she picked up a guitar, it all sort of went a bit pear-shaped. But anyway, sorry to have disappointed you. But let's cut now to the first inspiration, the first improvisation. Any second now.
you.
Rosey, are you there?
Oh, yes. Oh, it's asked me to start my video. Here we go.
That was amazing. Sorry, we had a bit of a technical issue at the beginning, but we sorted it. Fantastic, really good. Nice camera work. Maybe we should give a little shout to the producer of the video and presumably also the book operator earlier on. Do you think that's fair?
My lovely assistant here. Always hidden behind the camera. I'm very lucky to have a secret cameraman right behind me wherever I go.
Is he going to come and take a bath?
I don't think so.
Shaking his head.
He's operating a camera.
Oh, he's too busy. But a big shout out to Mike Figgis there behind the camera. Good job, Mike. Love the book work. Okay, and finally, we're going to have to say goodbye now, but could you talk us into the second improvisation piece that you wrote?
Yeah. Well, the second improvisation was evening time when I did that. And so it's a very different approach to the first one. And I do know that I'm very affected by the full moon. So I think I was drawn with my Baroque tendencies. So I think I started off with a very Baroque theme, and then it goes off onto a journey into several countries, I think. And then I've always loved this piece of music I heard a few years ago. It's a folk song from Montenegro, and a country I love very much and I've been to over the years. And it's just beautiful landscapes, beautiful scenery, mountains, nature. And so I heard this folk song and I wanted to find a way of synthesizing it in my own way with the piano so anyway, spontaneously that came into mind. And so I added a quote of that Montenegrin folk song in there. And then, yeah, the rest is took you off on quite a random full moon journey, I guess.
And when you're improvising, you talk about, going to the Lake District in a car or visiting countries or Montenegrin folk song. Are you seeing those pictures in your mind? Do the pictures accompany the music? Do they even lead the music? Do you have a visual experience at the same time, or is it just the sound and your brain and your hands?
A combination of all those things. Can be whatever it is I'm feeling at that moment. Sometimes it could be something I saw on a street, a little child on a street doing some movement, or a dancer, or something someone had said, something, a story that you had told me. It could be anything that I just thought of, and then that will trigger something for me because this is kind of an extension of myself. It's my voice. I'm a much better piano player than I am a speaker, so I express myself and respond to things through my instrument, really.
Well, Rosey, it's been brilliant talking to you. Thanks so much. I'm very grateful for that chance encounter a couple of months ago. As we were joking, that I think it was the last time any of us went out and sat close to other people and ate together. It was like, it was like a whole different planet, doesn't it? A whole different world. And thank you so much for helping us get through this lockdown situation. It sounds like you've been helping an awful lot of your friends and fans out there as well. So brilliant work. Keep it up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I also want to say, Marcus, I think what you're doing is extraordinary. And, you know, I thought I was busy, and I look at you, and how long is this festival going on? Like until June.
Still 5.5, 6 weeks.
I don't think you've taken a break, judging from the amount we had to communicate this week. And I just look at your schedule, I'm like, oh my gosh. But I think it's just so fantastic that you're bringing all these creative people together. And you know, Dezeen is such a great platform and like beautifully curated platform where you can bring all these creative minds and talent together. So I mean, great hats off to you, Marcus. The festival is fantastic.
Thank you so much. And thank you as well for introducing me to some of the people that when I finally find time to get back to them, will be hopefully getting involved, including your friend, the designer who cooks. I definitely
Jason Best-Majan. Oh, he is fantastic. Yeah, I just love it. He's really saved me a lot, actually, because he's, I mean, I'm very lucky I have a lot of chef friends, but he comes from the design world and fashion world. And, you know, he's also like interior designer, like AD features everywhere, beautiful homes. And he's like the chic chef, you know, like everything is beautifully styled. And so, no, I'm excited about that one. Hopefully he'll take you through his beautiful home and then show you some very interesting recipes for very, very, very simple recipes for people in isolation now, just like with whatever you have, no waste. And it's great. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Rosie. Thanks, Mike, for your invaluable behind the camera assistance.
My pleasure.
And let's play out with the second improvisation. Thanks so much, Rosie. See you soon.
Thank you, Marcus. Bye.